Stick around to the end of this video for a shadowing exercise for beginners, intermediate, and advanced learners. And please don't forget to like. In this video, we're going to take a look at a sound that gives a lot of learners a lot of trouble. Ah, ah. But by the end of this video, you'll be pronouncing it like a badass. This vowel is short in the word map and long in the word man. Map, man. Map, man. In our last video, we learned that in order to make the sound aw, we have to open our mouth really big. For this sound, we also open our mouth, but not big. Instead, we pull the corners of our lips back as if we're going to smile.
Oh man, oh man, oh man.
If you're still having trouble making this sound, here's a little tip. Chances are that in your language, goats and sheep make this sound. For instance, in English, goats say meh. That's basically this sound. Let's look at some names with ah. First, a shout out to my friend Anton. Anton. Make sure to pronounce both vowels correctly. Anton. Anton. I believe Anton lives in Moscow. Moscow. Here we have the same vowels as in Anton, but in reverse. Instead of ah, we have ah. Moscow. Moscow.
Moscow. Moscow.
And here's someone else with both these sounds in his name. Harry Potter. Ah. Harry Potter. Now, can anyone tell me who this is? Correct. It's Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow. From Pirates of the Caribbean. Caribbean. In our last video, we talked about this guy. What's his name? That's right, Borat. Borat. Who claims he's from Kazakhstan, but we all know that's not true. And speaking of places, who can name this American natural wonder? The Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon. Japan. Japan. Afghanistan. Afghanistan. Alabama. Alabama.
Alabama!
And finally, here's a country with both our sounds. Panama. Panama. And if that wasn't enough, we also have the Panama Canal. Panama Canal. The Panama Canal. I hope your mouth is getting a real workout. Workout. So now that you know what this sound is supposed to sound like, let's practice with some phrases. How would you say this? That's actually not bad. That's actually not bad.
Oh, that's actually not bad. Oh, that's actually not bad.
That's actually not bad at all. That's actually not bad at all.
Don't talk with your mouth full, it's disgusting.
Did you notice? He said mouth. Mouth.
Mouth.
That's because even though most dictionaries transcribe that word like this, most American speakers pronounce it like this. Mouth. Mouth. With ah. Mouth. And the same goes for any English word that contains that sound combination. Cow. Proud. About. And we already saw Moscow. Moscow.
Moscow. Moscow.
There's a famous children's book called Green Eggs and Ham, and the character says this. How would you say it? Sam I am. Sam I am.
You're Sam.
Sam I am.
You're Sam.
Sam, I am.
Notice the shape of his mouth when he says Sam.
Sam.
Sam. This is the full pronunciation of this sound. However, when it occurs in small words like at, that, as, which are usually unstressed and said very quickly, you don't really have time to give it the full pronunciation. So in those cases, we usually pronounce it like a short eh, eh. For instance, instead of saying as long as possible when you're trying to speak normally, it's a lot easier to shorten it to as long as possible, as long as possible.
As long as possible. As long as possible.
We have to stay on the ship as long as possible. Come on.
In this clip, you can also see how big the sound aw is in long and possible. Look at his mouth.
As long as possible.
Also notice how short the word as becomes, even in slow motion.
As long as possible.
We're going to stay on the air for as long as possible. As long as possible.
Also note that we only do this with small grammatical words, not with words like bad or last. We don't say bed or lest when we say them quickly. Listen to these actors reduce at to et and say at the post office, at the post office.
At the post office?
At the post office.
At the post office.
And when we use the word that as a conjunction, we almost always reduce it to that very short.
Tell him that I called.
Tell her that I called.
I'm sorry that I called last night.
And finally, the words have and had as part of the present perfect and past perfect are also commonly reduced to had and have.
And we have had different literary experts.
Louis, we have had presidents who are beloved. We have had presidents.
In fact, the past perfect of have is had had. However, in normal speech, we reduce the first had and we give the second had its full pronunciation. Had had. Had had.
Dad had had another son with his first wife, Marcia. Dad had had another son.
She had had no food or water for 3 days. She had had no...
You had had several drinks. You had had several drinks.
Pick your level and practice saying each sentence separately. Remember, you can slow the video down in settings if you need to. When you're comfortable with your pronunciation, try speaking along with me, imitating my pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. Don't forget to also work on the words that contain the vowel ah from our previous video. Let's go. I don't like candy. I don't have a sweet tooth. When I was little, I got a lot of candy for Halloween, but I only ate a little. My parents were happy because I had no cavities. My brother drank a lot of Coke and ate a lot of candy. When he was little, he had a lot of cavities. I've never been a fan of candy. I just don't have a sweet tooth. When I was small, my dad always took me out for Halloween. I got a lot of candy in my basket, and it lasted all year because I hardly touched it. That made my parents happy because no candy means no cavities. In fact, I've never had one cavity. My brother, on the other hand, by the time he was 10, had had about 5. But he also drank a lot of Coke. For as long as I can remember, I've never been a fan of candy. Zero sweet tooth. As a small kid, my dad would take me around the neighborhood on Halloween, and I'd come back with a basket full of candy, and that would usually last until the following Halloween. Naturally, my parents were glad because that meant less cavities. As of my last checkup, I've never had one cavity. By the time my brother was 10, he had had about 5. But then again, he also drank Coke like it was water. Thank you as always for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe.